about being the CTO of the Drupal Association, how the job has changed, and how it has impacted Drupal with our guests, Josh Mitchell and Tim Lennon. We'll also cover automatic anchors as our module of the week. Welcome to Talking Drupal. Our guests today are Josh Mitchell and Tim Lennon. Josh has led teams in digital agencies, governments, educational institutions, and nonprofits, including some time as CTO of the Drupal Association. He's currently the founder and principal consultant of M6L. As a full stack consultant, a typical day could include pair programming with the developer, advising a product manager, presenting to organizational leadership, and reviewing merge requests, and much more. Tim is the current CTO of the Drupal Association engineering team, whose specific mission is to empower the community to build Drupal. He was originally recruited to the DA by Josh in 2014, and he's also recently published a young adult fantasy novel called Fog and Fireflies, which I can confirm is great. I enjoyed that very much. Josh and Tim, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Howdy, howdy.
I'm Nick Laughlin, founder at Enlightened Development, and today my co-hosts are John Bacozzi, solution architect at EPAM.
Hey everyone, I have one topic to drop in today. Everybody knows about AI, right? I just heard about one of the best use cases of AI, and I might be late to the game here, so I apologize if everybody else has already heard about this. But I was recently listening to This Week in Tech, and they were talking about somebody has developed an AI to answer spam calls and keep them on the phone as long as humanly possible.
That's choice.
It is amazing. It sounds like an older British lady, and she's just basically trying to keep them on the phone as long as possible. And I will tell you, some of those spammers, they get very upset when they figure out that it's fake. But
can you imagine looking at a visualization of the call activity across the globe and having this whole portion that's just robots talking to themselves?
Yeah,
Like some kind of
that's how far
parasitic
away.
snake eating its tail.
But yeah, I just thought it was interesting, as I'm sure we've all gotten calls of like, there's a virus on your computer, and we're like, oh yeah, tell me more. Like, oh, what do I need to do? I need to send you Bitcoin in order to get it off. Got it. I thought that was very interesting, so I thought I would share.
That's awesome.
And now to talk about our module of the week, let's turn it over to Martin Anderson-Klutz, a senior solutions engineer at Acquia and a maintainer of a number of Drupal modules and recipes of his own. Martin, what do you have for us this week?
Thanks, Nick. Have you ever wanted headings on your Drupal site to have unique ID values so links can be created to take your users to specific parts of any page? There's a module for that. It's called Automatic Anchors, and it was created in June of 2020 by Chris Komlenik, K. Omlenik of Penn State. And it has a 2.1.1 beta 1 version available, which supports Drupal 8.8, 9, and 10, which brings into question the degree to which it's actively maintained, but it hasn't been officially marked as unmaintained. It does have test coverage and is officially in use by 137 sites, according to Drupal.org. Now, by default, the module automatically generates IDs on H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6 elements within the page content. And even if two headings have the same content, the module will make sure that their ID values are unique, as well as making sure they are internationalization friendly, use hyphens instead of spaces, and are short enough to be useful. The module won't interfere with or change manually added or already existing HTML IDs. And there's a permission to view helpful links on each heading that the IDs generate to make it obvious and easy to copy those ID links. Now, configuration options available include the root element it should look within. So by default, it looks for everything within the body tag, which elements it should get the ID values attached to, and what content to use for the display links, as well as whether or not to generate IDs on admin pages. So let's talk about automatic anchors.
This is potentially exciting to me because this is something that clients ask for all the time. And I end up writing I usually end up just adding something where like, hey, when a paragraph is created, it just adds its ID to the, component dash number ID or something so that there's something on the page when they need it. And then if they if it's a particular CTA or something, maybe there's something they can enter it manually, so it's a little bit nicer. But this seems convenient because it feels like you can just put it in. But how how many IDs does it end up adding to the page? Does it end up adding like hundreds of IDs to everything it finds? Like, what
I
does that look
I
like?
think the answer would have to be it depends on how many headings that you have on your page. I mean,
Yeah.
for myself, I would probably want to change the root element to look just within sort of the like page content as
Yeah.
opposed to like anywhere on the page, and probably skip like H5 and H6. I mean, I don't know how often those naturally get used anyway, but yeah, you can be more selective if you think that it ends up creating way more links than are actually useful.
I was just talking to one of our new product marketing folks at the DA about the in progress work on the new Drupal.org, and one of the things we were just talking about is anchor links for some of our new landing page components. So I actually might seriously look at this because, yeah, similar to what you were saying, Nick, like you could use a freeform field to establish IDs. You could do all sorts of things on your paragraph components or whatever, or try and auto generate. But this seems like it'd be very convenient to just say, hey, all our H2s and all our H3s get IDs, and they're just ready to go. So that could be cool.
Martin, question: does this? I'm assuming this addition of IDs happens on the front end of the site within the Drupal theme, right? And let me give you the full picture before I just like I hit you with like half of a question, right?
Okay.
So like I'm thinking like this is super useful, definitely, but the current site I'm working on is headless. So like if it gets applied to WYSIWYG fields and whatnot within the Drupal database, then great, because that just gets pushed out via API. But otherwise, you might run into issues if this is kind of like only a Drupal theme thing.
So my impression of how it works is that it's adding an attribute to the render array. So I suspect that, I mean, theoretically, you might be able to sort of update whatever JSON API or whatever you're using to sort of try and make sure that that gets passed through as part of whatever sort of data you're passing to the front end. But I also feel like, as you say, you could probably do something pretty similar on the front end. And if you're using like Next.js or something like that, there's probably already some kind of a library that can basically just parse the page on output and do something similar there as well.
I have a
Oh.
developer that did this on another project, and it's just a few lines of JavaScript. If you know what you're targeting, what I like about the module is it does a lot of the makes it configurable. So you can say I want these elements, and you can permission that little highlighted pound sign that actually lets people see the anchor link is there when they hover over, which I think is kind of cool too. When Martin mentioned this one, I told him, I was like, oh, this is kind of like TOC.js, which stands for Table of Contents JavaScript. It's another module in Drupal that I've used several times that lets you configure on this page or in this article menu. That's all of your headings, for instance. I've never done more than just my H2s though. I'm kind of a purist whenever it comes to that. I'm like, section heading should be enough. I mean, if you have subsections, your editors are probably doing it wrong. I just think if you're using H4s, something's wrong.
Especially if you need to link to all the way down into your H4s, there's probably a good chance that maybe that should be a subpage of a something.
It's going to be a long title, whatever it is at the H4 level. It's going to be pretty deep.
One thing that I did notice now that I'm looking at the code, it is a front end library that's being added. And I think that means then if you change your content, the IDs will be changed too. So if you can't rely on this to give you kind of a long-term anchor link to something, because if somebody edits the content, that ID is going to change. Now your anchor link is going to break. But if you're using it for some sort of table of contents like thing, but you already have TOC.js, so yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out, Nick. I think on the project page, it might actually use the word permalink somewhere in there. And to your point, if the content of a heading changes, then it definitely will change the ID value. So definitely not a permalink in that sense.
Still a good foundation and maybe useful for a variety of use cases. They mentioned explicitly, for example, that they're kind of emulating the behavior on Drupal.org's developer docs, where we've got some automatically generated anchor links to headers people add to the docs pages. So
Yeah, but then but the thing linking to it is also updated automatically, right?
right,
The
yeah,
documentation. So
yep,
you kind of need both sides of that.
absolutely, yeah. In this case, that because it's not assuming these external links, it's the TOC in the sidebar of those docs pages. So
Well, thank you, Martin. As always, another great module of the week. I did see during NedCamp that you were posting new modules in our module of the, module of the week Slack. So I imagine you stocked up over the weekend. If folks wanted to suggest other modules or just chat with you about one that we've discussed, how would people get in touch with you?
We're always happy to talk about modules of the week or interesting modules in general in the Talking Drupal channel of Drupal Slack, or folks can reach out to me directly as ManClue on all of the Drupal and social platforms.